Welcome to City Connect, the program that brings Shawnee's citizens and government closer together.
The City of Shawnee uses a fund accounting structure. This is standard for municipalities in Oklahoma and around the country. Director of Finance has three major functions: preparing the financial statements for fiscal year, the annual budget process, and overseeing the day-to-day operations of the city's accounting and finance.
The City of Shawnee has an independent audit performed and filed with the state auditor on an annual basis. Auditors examine internal controls and financial statements to be sure they fairly represent the current financial position of the city. Auditors are not searching for misappropriations or fraud, but any irregularities they find are included in their report. The audit is an annual, thorough going over of the City of Shawnee's accounting process and procedures. The city's budget process begins in February as the heads of each department come together to analyze the first 8 months of the current year. Each department then returns and through discussions with their staff prioritizes preliminary recommendations for the upcoming fiscal year budget cycle. Each department must be prepared with accurate assessments of staffing costs, construction and capital improvement needs, and projected operations, maintenance, and services for the forthcoming year. The department heads then begin weekly budget meetings to hash out and prioritize the needs of each department according to forecasted revenues for the upcoming fiscal cycle. Ultimately, these meetings produce the first budget draft that then is presented to the city commissioners for input. After the commissioners review the budget, they propose changes which are made in accordance to their direction. And what this process yields is usually a 100+ page budget broken down by department and by fund in excess of $40 million.
As a part of the Open Records Act, citizens are entitled to information about the city's finances. To get a good overview of the city's finances and budget process, a good source is the audit report, and by reading the introduction letter in the budget report. Any questions can be directed to the Finance Department. The City of Shawnee uses a standard fiscal year of July 1st to June 30th. This is the most common fiscal year for Oklahoma cities, although some have chosen to match the calendar year.
Revenue is generated for the city's operations primarily through the collection of the 3-cent sales tax within the City of Shawnee. 2 cents of that goes into the general fund for general operations, and the remaining penny is split to be the major source of funding for 5 specific departments. 6.25% to the Police Department Fund, 6.25% to the Fire Department Fund, 5% to the Economic Development Fund, 39% to the Capital Improvements Fund, and the remaining 48% to the Streets Fund. The City of Shawnee has a typical annual budget in excess of $40 million. About 40% of the budget goes into the general fund, which is primarily collected from the 2-penny sales tax. Other sources of revenue include franchise taxes on utility companies for using city right-of-ways, use taxes, state and federal grants, permits, fines, fees, forfeitures, and interest revenue. Shawnee also has, as a part of the accounting process, a few departments that are separate, self-supporting legal entities that the City of Shawnee is the beneficiary. The Shawnee Municipal Authority, which carries the responsibilities for our community's water, sewage, and sanitation needs, operates our water department. This entity is supported by our water bill payments each month. The Airport Authority operates our regional airport and is funded through land leases, fuel sales, airplane storage fees, and royalties from an on-site oil well. The Expo Center is operated by the Shawnee Civic and Cultural Authority and receives revenue from events, gatherings, and RV parking. The city augments the Expo Center funds with more than $500,000 each year. The annual audit for the city covers these entities along with the entire accounting process.
Funds are segregated, self-balancing sets of accounts for recording assets, revenues, liabilities, and expenses for a specific activity that allow tracking of assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenditures or expense for key areas of city operation. Like most cities, the city has several different funds. These funds are required by law to be accounted for depending on their purpose for being.
General fund dollars help support various departments: police, fire, engineering, code enforcement, park and recreation, human resources, accounting, streets, water, animal control, and others. More than 70% of the general funds pay the costs of having more than 250 employees working for our city, a number that is low compared to many other cities of comparable size. Costs, which include wages and salaries with necessary benefits, such as medical and dental insurance, workers' compensation, for which the city is self-insured, and retirement payments to the different plans which the employees are a part.
The city's financial data is also available online on the city website. The documents can be downloaded as PDF files for the current year or for previous years. There is also an interactive chart maker that can be used to graph various financial accounts and adjust time periods for comparison. Many employees are lost to other areas paying higher wages.
The City of Shawnee pay scale is lower than our neighbor, Oklahoma City, and competes for many of the same workers. City employees receive no free services from the city. The City of Shawnee practices fairly restrictive spending policies to preserve the integrity of each expenditure. For purchases in excess of $100, there must be a purchase order written. From $100 to $500 purchases require 3 verbal quotes. Anything over $500 requires 3 written quotes, and if a required purchase is over $25,000, the competitive bidding laws of the state must be followed. Emergency rules do exist and override normal policies when necessary. The Chamber of Commerce receives no city funds, but houses the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which receives pass-through funds of roughly $400,000 collected from overnight stays in our local hotels. In order to offset rising employee costs, the different departments within the city have begun volunteer programs, like the police chief implementing a reserve officer program, and the emergency management team organizing volunteers and activating them in times of citizen need, such as debris removal or search and rescue. Challenges the city faces on a regular basis include limited funding for capital improvement projects, like the replacement of the city's 50 to 80-year-old water lines. Frequent line breaks are expensive, but inadequate resources do not allow for expanded pipe bursting and replacement of the older lines. The Human Resource Department periodically does salary comparisons with 15 other like-size and budget municipalities, and typically Shawnee salaries rank low on the list. This causes employee turnover concerns, as we are losing workers to neighboring communities and have difficulty filling needed positions with trained personnel, like heavy equipment operators. Shawnee is different than many other cities in that it self-insures its workers' compensation and unemployment responsibilities. The fund is closely monitored and is augmented each year according to an actuary report that helps keep the fund in balance.